rational thought to determine themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, since 2015, SDGs has been set with the spirit of leaving no one behind and gender equality being the fifth goal. Undeniably, this bias remains to exist even though history has witnessed every role of women until modern civilizations. What happened today, violence against women, has escalated, especially during the pandemic. The Ministries of Women Empowerment and Child Protection of the Republic of Indonesia recorded that more than 10,000 cases of violence against women were reported during 2021. The reality of repeated violence demands equal participation of women and women's leadership in political and the public spheres, and this is critical to achieving the sustainable goals by 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, UN Women notes that the balanced political participation and power sharing between women and men in decision-making is the internationally agreed target set in Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action on 1995. Most countries in the world have not achieved gender balance, and few have set or meet ambitious target for gender parity of 50-50. As of 1st September 2021, there are 26 women serving as head of states and or government in 24 countries. Based on UN Women's calculations, gender equality in the highest positions of power will not be reached for another 130 years. Only 20% of ministers were women, and only 14 countries have achieved 15% or more women in cabinets, with annual increase of just 0.52%. Gender parity in ministerial position will not be achieved before 2077. Globally, only 20% of all national parliamentaries are women, up from 11% in 1995. In Indonesia itself, women representation in parliament for the 5 years period 2019-2024, it's only 20.87%. The only 4 countries have 50% or more women in parliament in the single house or lower positions, namely Rwanda, Cuba, and Bolivia, and United Arab Emirates. Globally, there are 27 states in which women account less than 10%. Based on current achievement, gender parity in the national legislative body will not be achieved before 2063. Data from 133 countries shows that women constitute 2.18 million or 36% of the total elected members in local parliamentary bodies, and only 2 countries have reached 50%, and an additional 18 countries have more than 40% women in local government. The representations of women in local parliamentary bodies as of January 2020 is Central and South Asia 41%, Europe and North America 35%, Oceania 32%, Sub-Saharan Africa 29%, East and Southeast Asia 25%, Latin America and Caribbean 25%, West Asia and North Africa 18%. Based on this, UN Women notes the joint task of women in ASEAN is to move together to increase participation in politics at every level. This is necessary to enrich policy perception as well as seek equality in politics. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia has been entrusted for the G20 presidency. The theme chosen is Recover Together, Recover Stronger. The theme invites all countries in the world to work hand in hand, support one another to recover together and grow stronger and sustainably together. Recovering and growing stronger should also open up space for the fulfillment of women's rights as well as encourage the fulfillment of gender equality. In accordance with the spirit and mandate of the SDGs, the target that must be achieved by all countries in the world, especially Southeast Asia, is to end all forms of discrimination against women and children, ensure that all women can participate fully and own equal opportunity to serve in leadership at all levels of decision-making in political, economic, and public life. Carry out reforms to provide women equal rights to economic resources. Eliminate all harmful practices such as child, early and forced marriage, and female circumcision. Eliminate all forms of violences against women and girls in public and private spaces, including human trafficking, sexual violences, and other forms of exploitations. Adopt and strengthen clear policies and enforcement of legislations to promote gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls at all levels, and other SDGs target that must be achieved. Every goal will be achieved if we start with a joint movement. Women supports women to paint the world. Start.
Excellencies, distinguished participants of this forum, let us now continue. But before we go to the first presentation from our two notable speakers, we would like to humbly request for short remarks or greetings from ambassadors of ASEAN countries present here today. It is such an honor to have you with us, Excellency, because we know that you are all definitely so busy and you're sparing your time to join us here. Thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. So to begin with, we would like to kindly give the opportunity to Ambassador of Laos to Kuwait, Your Excellency, Ambassador Si Sonsai Ngao Vong Si, if you may. The forum is yours. Could you please unmute? We cannot hear you. You are still muted, Your Excellency.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Clearly,
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And on behalf of the Laos Embassy to the Kuwait, I would like to express my great and sincere for allow me to join with the leading ASEAN Women Conference chaired by especially the Excellency Ambassador Lena for links of joys with your women of Indonesia. It's a very great to join and to hear about the role of the women of the Indonesia in the world and forever. Of course, I would like to congratulate this meeting and very useful and very useful for our embassy as well as our women in the embassy of Laos as well as the women of the Lao people, Democratic Republics. But I'm sorry because your name is very difficult to read. I know, but Excellency, yes, thank you, especially the Minister of Women's Environment and Child Protection, Madam Wi Kuntan Damawa. Is very important. Thank you, Excellency Ministers, for this heat of this organization. And thank you, Madam Lateri Boy Diaz. This is a deputy chairperson of Indonesian People Consultative Assembly. Of course, I would like to say that Laos government also very pay attention and for the Laos Women Union in the field of the government activity. As you know, during the since we joined to ASEAN country, Laos Women Union organization also is a very important to activity in the own field of the women in ASEAN country and in the world. Especially is the right of women and the right of women in activity in the field of the government. As maybe I cannot talk the whole story of Laos Women Union because if you give me only 3 or 5 minutes, so that's why I inform you that the Laos Women Union, the level of Laos Women Union organization equality with the Ministry of Labor. It established in 20 of July 1995. Now this year we have 66 year anniversary of the establishment of the Laos Women Union, and also under activity by policy of the government, Laos Women Union play pivotal role in the field of the from central government to the rural area. We have organization for increasing and protect human of union. Yeah, we government have the policy exactly by the we made in the constitution of Laos, and of course during the recent last month, we also have had a meeting the meeting of the 66th anniversary of the Laos Women Union in Vientiane City, and we have talking about the role of the Women Union in our country and the role of Laos Women Union in the ASEAN country and in the world. So that's why our government pays attention on the field of the women organization activities. So I also thank you. Finally, I thank you very much. I would like to wish this meeting continue by success, and thank you, excellencies. Thank you, leaders, women leaders of Indonesian for organizing the very important, very useful the meetings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador and Madam Si Songsai Ngao Vong Si. And next, we humbly request His Excellency Dato' M. Ali Salamat, Ambassador of Malaysia to Kuwait, to address his remarks. Yang Mulia, kami persilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, selamat pagi, selamat siang. First of all, I would like to thank the Indonesian Ambassador, Excellency Ambassador Lena Mariana, for inviting me to attend this webinar. I would like also to commend the committee for ensuring this webinar is success. Well, I did not prepare any text for these short remarks, but I just want to address the attendees in general. At my personal level, I'm very interested in following this issue of empowerment of women. I believe the future is equal. Because I myself, I only have 3 children. And that 3 children are all women, all girls. And I really interested to empower them, for them to participate actively in the societal development and the national development. At the embassy level, we have got our perwakilan. Perwakilan is Persatuan Wanita Kementerian Luar Negeri, headed by my wife. And this perwakilan has 15 committee members. Their activities is to encourage our Malaysian women here to empower themselves in various areas. Well, as a country, the government of Malaysia has made several commitments to promote gender equality and women's empowerment. It has ratified the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discriminations of Women, CEDAW, the International Labour Organization Convention number 100, and the Equal Remuneration Convention. It has exceeded the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, in 2019. At the national level, Malaysia has committed to furthering the gender equality agenda. We have formulated a national policy on women in 1997, and we have formulated a plan of action for the advancement of women as well. The national policy on women and the national plan of action for the advancements of women targeted the needs of women with disabilities, women heads of households, women whose husbands have been in prison, women who have been abandoned, sex workers, women survivors of domestic violence, indigenous women, women plantation workers, women with HIV and financial difficulties, and women senior citizens above 70 years old and who are at high risk of impoverishment. So the government of Malaysia also amended Article 8 in bracket 2 of the Federal Constitutions to prohibit any form of gender discriminations. Well, this is part of the initiative by the government to empower women, and but I believe that there are more efforts must be undertaken to achieve the dream of the future is equal. There remains challenges, and we are not satisfied with the achievement of women right now. Although women comprises of 50% of our populations, about 15.7 million of Malaysian population are women, we really need to work harder to make women progress in their respective fields. We only have right now, under the current term, we only have 33 parliamentarians. So that does not represent the total women involvement in the progress of the country. For example, only 17% of businesses in Malaysia have a woman in the role of chief executive officer or managing director. This is according to the report by the Global Professional Services Network, Grant Thornton International Limited. On the other hand, in its latest Women in Business research, it was found that the percentage of women holding senior leadership positions in Malaysia also dropped to 23% from 28% recorded in March 2018. So I believe this webinar is very important for us to address this issue and to promote women empowerment in a greater efforts. I would like to once again to thank Ambassador Lina for this commendable initiative, and I hope this webinar will be a success, and I hope that we will see greater empowerment and enhancement of women in the future, inshallah. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Next, I would kindly request the Ambassador of Singapore to Kuwait, Your Excellency Ambassador Zainul Abidin Rashid. We kindly invite you to deliver for approximately 5 minutes your remarks. Is Ambassador Zainul Abidin Rashid present?
Yeah, yes, I am present.
Yes.
In fact, the organizer just unmuted me. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
we apologize.
No issue, no problem at all. It's a real pleasure to be with you, Ibu Sardina, yeah, and also Excellency Ibu Lina Mariana. Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, dan selamat bertemu dalam acara webinar mengenai woman ini. I'm really very honored to be invited by Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia to Kuwait, Dubes Ibu Lina Mariana. She has just joined us in Kuwait as one of the ASEAN ambassadors. But you'll be pleased to know that, in fact, she is so dynamic and so active that she's done so much thing even with this short period of time. And thus we came to know about this webinar, and we are very pleased and honored to be invited to join in. I'm sure if Ibu Lina is an example of the kind of women leaders that you have in Indonesia, I think it is a very promising future for women, role of women, and contributions of women to Indonesia. In fact, I was sharing with Madam Ibu Lina, I was pleasantly surprised, of course, when she told me that she met me back in the 70s when she was a student activist. I was also a student activist then, together with an organization like HMI, IAIN, ya. Kita aktif sekali dalam masa itu untuk mempergiatkan, memberjayakan acara-acara berhubung dengan student activities. And it's through those student activities I got to know many of the Indonesian friends I have even till today. And I'm very pleased to know that, in fact, many of them, in fact, a few of them, very close friends of mine who ended up as ambassadors. And the latest of whom is, of course, Ambassador Lina. I remember Ambassador Fauzi Ghani, Ambassador Nazar Nasution, and also I remember Dr.
Your work can feel much smoother with Monday.com WorkOS.
Yang juga isteri kepada Dr. Azrul Azwar yang juga menjadi ketua daripada Ikatan Kedoktoran. These are some examples of Indonesian student leaders who rose in their ranks and became important leaders and played an important role in the whole of Indonesia, and indeed contributed towards development. So I'm very pleased to be here to say a few words. But on the question of your own webinar, I must congratulate the organizers, Ibulina and yourself, Madam Moderator, and all those who put the program together, because I'm sure it will be a success. From what I see, it's not just about participation of women, but it's actually about ASEAN, building ASEAN community through women's perspective. And women perspective, in fact, are a very important part of the whole future. As we brace ourselves for the challenges of the future, especially with the last 2 years of COVID challenges, I think we need to rope in everyone. And women constitute 50%, if not more, of our population. And we look forward to the contribution of women together with the men to make it a holistic approach towards embracing the challenges, overcoming the challenges, and contributing towards a brighter future. I was very pleased myself that, in fact, I'm serving also on the MediaCorp Board of Directors, and they, in fact, have an annual leadership summit organized every year. And this year, on February 8th, last week, they, in fact, chose to leadership summit using the International Women's Day as the theme. And we had a very wonderful discussion about the challenges, the contributions, and the future of role of women in Singapore. The Minister, Josephine Teo, who was a guest of honor, also shared with us that Singapore government will be issuing a white paper on the role of women in Parliament this week. And I think we all look forward to that, because we believe in the greater role and the greater contribution of women, and we would like to hear their perspectives as we share our future together. So I think this is something great. Wish you all the best. Wish Madam Ambassador Lina success in her new role in Kuwait, and all the success for you and your webinar, Madam Moderator. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Ambassador Zainul Abidin Rashid. That's really magnificent to hear from your side. And regarding Madam Lena Mariana Mukti, I couldn't agree more. We are so proud to have Madam Lena Mariana Mukti represent the face of successful Indonesian women in the face of the earth globally. Next, I would like to give the opportunity to His Excellency Roge Tamongkol, Ambassador of Thailand to Kuwait. The time allocated is also approximately 5 minutes. Would you please, Your Excellency?
Mute. All right, should be okay. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege and honor to attend this webinar. It's not because just my wife asked me to do so, but the topic is very interesting. It's about building ASEAN community through women's perspective. And I would like to thank, in particular, Her Excellency Ambassador Lina, Indonesia Ambassador here to Kuwait, for the initiative. And also, I would like to thank all participants in this webinar for a wonderful works today. Let me begin by giving you some information about the report on the gender gap position. The World Economic Forum 2020, not long ago, had issued a global gender gap report. In this report, Thailand gender gap position was 75 among 153 countries worldwide. Within Asia Pacific, we ranked number 6, right after New Zealand, Philippines, Laos, Australia, and Singapore. At present, the Thai women in politics and in the House Representative is about 10%. And also we used to have the woman who was a Thai Prime Minister before. And in the business section, the Thai woman role is very important. And now the elite group of the women will be about 34% compared to the total business sector of Thailand. Well, I'm not satisfied with the figure or statistic that I read to you. I think there will be more work to do to promote further the women's rights in every aspect of the society. I would like also to take this opportunities to inform the participants that in recognition of women and to pursue the 2019 to 2030 La Selana Action Plan for Women and Inclusive Growth, Thailand, as a host of APEC Summit, will hold or organize 2 forums. The first forum is APEC Women and the Economy Forum. And the second forum is High-Level Policy Dialogue on Women and the Economy. So I hope that all participants in this webinar and in the women society or organization in ASEAN country will be able to join the said forums in Thailand, because we want to strengthen the women, connectivities and networkings around the ASEAN country. And perhaps we can explore more action plan together to further develop the women's rights in every aspect of the society. We should probably thinking about focusing on the grassroots level, because for my personal opinion, the bias on the women's rights came from the generation in the Cold War. But now the Cold War is over. Even though we have a new war in Ukraine and we have to fight the COVID pandemics, but I think the new generation is more open for the equal and gender equalities. And I wish that we could further highlight the education for the children, the new generation to come. We have to teach the young children how to love the human life, the equal gender equalities, regardless of race, religions, and culture. And we have to teach them how to love peace among the world, in this world. So I think that's all the short remark I have to say within 5 minutes. And finally, I wish the webinar here a successful one. And thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I was just informed that, honestly, I was born in Thailand, in Bangkok, but Thai names are one of the most difficult names to properly or correctly pronounce. So thank you, Your Excellency. Ruch Tamongkok.
Sure, you got it right.
Got it right this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, distinguished participants, Excellencies, last but not least, Ambassador of Vietnam to Kuwait, Your Excellency Ngo Tuan Thang. The forum is yours for 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but you are, I think you need to flip your device.
Like this?
Yes. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Like this?
That is perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Dear distinguished, dear fellow ambassadors here, and ladies and gentlemen. So first of all, I would like to express March 8th, few days ago. So the UN recognized the UN Women's Day since back to 1975. So it's very important about all of us, men, remember this very important day. Thank you, Madam Chair, Ambassador Lina, for this wonderful webinar. So we can, it's kind of awareness raising webinar. So have to be, everybody have to remember the woman as a new source of creating the community of ASEAN today. So for the topic today, the building ASEAN community through women perspective, I think that the topic is very, very relevant in our world today, especially when ASEAN become the one community in 2015. So for some reason, first, the population, women is make half the population. Second, women participation in politics is very increasing. In Vietnam, women, 1/3 of the parliament members are women. And the role of the woman is even more prominent in the business sector, especially in the private sector. We have a lot of successful women entrepreneurs in the private sector, and for the in politics. So I think that Indonesia, I think that is the leading example of the women empowerment. And you send I think the first female ambassador to this region. So we're very welcome and look forward that she will make a difference in our group, ACK, with ASEAN fellow ambassadors here. So with that, I think that the women will make difference when they building the ASEAN community. So I hope that this webinar will provide more perspective so that the men can know and can help the women to doing their work in ASEAN community. So with that, I would like to wish all the best to the webinar, all the participants, good health and success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Excellency Ambassador Thong. And especially also would like to say thank you so much for the wonderful surprise you gave to Ambassador Lina Mariana Mukti. You gave her a bouquet of roses, if I'm not mistaken. That was a good surprise. Highly appreciated in commemoration of the International Women's Day. Thank you. And we couldn't agree more with everything that has been forwarded by all ambassadors just now. I believe we are all fighting for, thriving for women empowerment. And allow me to also, I've just got news that we have with us former Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection of the Republic of Indonesia, Ibu Linda Agung Gumelar. Selamat bergabung, Ibu Linda. Thank you so much. And the current Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection Program of the Republic of Indonesia, Protection Agency, is represented by the Deputy Minister, and he has joined us right now. So would like to give the opportunity to Mr. Indra, Deputy Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection. Mr. Indra Gunawan is now with us and will read the remarks, unfortunately, in Bahasa Indonesia. and we do not have anything prepared in English, and try with you after this forum the translation. So now let us together follow the remarks presented by the Deputy Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection of the Republic of Indonesia. Pak Budi, kami persilakan.
Thank you, Mbak Sandrina Malakiano. I will try to use the English, because
that is perfect. Thank you so much. Highly appreciated.
English. Okay, thank you very much. Excellency, Ibu Duta Besar, Bu Dubes, Lena Mariana Mukti, and also Excellency, Ambassador from Asian member country. First of all, I would like to apologize. Our ministry could not join with the special webinar this afternoon, but hopefully, Bu Ambassador, Bu Duta Besar, this webinar will be success. I believe on you. As we mentioned, we know that the population in ASEAN is more than 500 million. So this is a very huge population in this area. Of course, half of them is women, and with the huge population, we'll hope that will influence for all of the world. In this area, there is a lot of achieving of women. As they mentioned before, there is a woman in military, member of the parliament. In Indonesia, head of the parliament is a woman, Ibu Puan Maharani. And a lot of CEO in the company also a woman. And in this G20 Indonesia presidency 2022, our government also supported that women will be more representative in the company, especially in the highest level. And if we look on the Human Development Index, there is 3 countries in ASEAN very high Human Development Index, such as Singapore, Brunei Darussalam, and Malaysia. And another one with the high Human Development Index, such as Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. And in another category is medium Human Development Index, such as Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar. Based on this index, so we are optimistic that the gender equality is getting better in Asian region. There is no countries in the low category level. So with this data, we believe that in ASEAN will continue, improve, and progress to achieve the highest and the higher Human Development Index in the future. In this moment, especially in Indonesia, we still have challenges we still have cultural patriarchal that, of course, can the cultural marginalization and subordination, stereotyping, and also double burden. That also this is the challenge of women to be more represented in the public area. In the pandemic area, of course, this is also more burden to the woman, such as because we have to work in the home. Our children have to study at the home. Domestic worker become more than usual. So, of course, pandemic have an impact on this on women. We know that the declaration, the name declaration in Bali, in KTT in Bali, we agree that there is 3 pillars to give the welfare on the Asian community. So with the three pillars, we believe that we try to achieve all of the country to give more prosperity. We also have gender mainstreaming in the program and activity to achieve the gender equality. There is a lot of many program and activity that we believe a woman can be involved more and get the benefit like a man. So with the synergy with many stakeholders, we believe that we can achieve the better gender equality, and of course with we can achieve the sustainable development goal that no one's left behind. So with this webinar, I believe that there is a lot of insight to give us that women will be empowered and we can achieve the equality. And we believe the Building Asian Community through women perspective will give more broaden and will give more perspective to the Asian in the future, of course. I think once again, congratulations for this seminar, and I hope you will be enjoy discussion today and give the insight from the resource person. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you so much, Pak Indra Gunawan. And Excellencies, distinguished participants, let us now go to the next item on our agenda, the highlight that we've been waiting for. Let us now follow the presentation from our first speaker, notable Indonesian economist. She was formerly a lead economist at the World Bank and currently the CEO of Asa Creativita, a consulting and ed tech company established in the year of 2020. Mrs. Vivi Alatas, the time allocated for this presentation is 15 minutes. The forum is now yours.
Sandrina, let me share my own screen. Is it possible?
Yes, I think it is already being shared right now. Oh, not yet. This is from the
yes,
from our part. So if possible, maybe Mas Abid, apakah memungkinkan? Mas Abid, if possible.
Mbak Vivi sudah bisa langsung.
Ya.
Oke, saya coba share screen ya.
Yes.
Maybe you can. There is some difficulty from mine. Mungkin dari sana aja, nggak apa-apa dari sana aja. Ada sedikit. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Salam Nama Budaya. Thank you very much, Madam Lena Mariana, for inviting me, Madam, and also thank you for ASEAN member ambassadors. What I would like to talk today is actually what are the lessons learned that we know from ASEAN countries in terms of empowering women in ASEAN. There are several things that I would like to talk. The first one is empowering women is morally right and it is also economically smart. A widely cited McKinsey Global Institute study finds that if we can close gender gap, we can add 12 to 25% to global GDP by 2025. This is a big progress that we can do. It means that we could actually empowering women is the biggest tickets that we can do in prioritizing for any country, because it actually translates into also better education, health, higher per capita income, faster and more inclusive economic growth, and greater international competitiveness. So it is the smart thing to prioritize for any country. Next. But not only that, it is also have multidimensional impact. For example, it translates into children's education, health, nutrition, which leads to economic growth in the long term. In India, for example, if gender gap can be increased by only 10%, GDP could rise by 8%. In Africa, also the same thing. Total agriculture outputs can increase by up to 20% if women access to agriculture input was equal to men's. Next. And the compelling reason is not only just from the government side issues. Business for business, it is also like addressing gender equality is an important along the life cycle, along the supply chain, whether women as a supplier or as a business leader, as employer, as customer, as community. For example, one more women in senior management or an corporate board is associated with 8 to 13 basis point higher return on assets. Next. However, as we know, the world is unequal and women are in disadvantaged economic positions. Next. As Ambassador Thailand already showed, last year, there is a very important report from World Economic Forum looking at the gender gap. If we look totally at in global, it's actually, we have 68%. It means that we have completed 68% of the gap. But if we look at all the dimensions, especially on the economic participation and political empowerment sub-index, there are still a lot of things that we need to achieve. Only 58% of the economic participation gap has been fulfilled. For political empowerment, only 22%. There are remaining 78% that needs to be fulfilled. Next. Overall progress at the index level masks important variation across regions. For example, in here, we see East Asia and Pacific. Even though it is like for this year, it has the biggest improvement compared to last year, but we still rank number 5. However, ASEAN countries is better than other ASEAN in terms other ASEAN countries is better than other Asia countries in terms of like the gender gap. Let's try to look one by one. Next. For overall ASEAN, there are several things that we need to address. First, we need to address several of the SDGs issues that we are probably not on track in terms of addressing. For example, for SDG number 1, 58% of women still earn less than their partners. Women make up only 24%. This is ASEAN from ASEAN countries data of middle and senior managers in the private sectors. COVID-19 also create another burden, especially on unpaid domestic and care work burden, and the double burden for women, 30% additional for women, while for men just only 16%. Next. If we look one by one for ASEAN countries, there is actually a best. Laos is given as the best example in the world in empowering women participations. Actually, Laos has ranked number 1 in terms of overall economic participation and opportunity. We can learn from each other, not only from Laos. We could also learn, for example, from Singapore in terms of wage equality for similar work, which is ranked number 7. We could also learn from not only Laos, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, who already achieve gender parity in terms of professional and technical workers. It means that both men and women has the same amount of representation based on the population. I think that learning from each other what works and what doesn't will give us stronger actions to address these important problems. Next. Overall, if we look not only just the ranking, but actually the rate itself, ASEAN is better than the world average in addressing economic gap. For each of those four sub-dimensions, almost all Asian countries are actually better than the world average in addressing economic gap. But nevertheless, there are still a lot of homework to be done when, for example, the representation of legislators, senior official, and manager is still below 50% for most countries. Similarly, for professional and technical workers. Next. There are disparities among countries, but we also need to look at disparities within countries. This table comes from Asian Gender Outlook report from Asian Secretariat. It try to look at like some of the key indicators and whether we see some disparities within countries. For example, even though Laos is #1 in terms of gender economic participation, Lao Thai women living in rural areas without roads are almost 5 times as likely as urban Lao Thai women to lack access to basic sanitation. There are still homework on that. Malaysian women aged 15 to 24 are nearly 6.5 times as likely to be unemployed as adult women aged 25 and above. Next. Similarly, in Singapore, women in prime reproductive age are 1.3 times as likely to be part of the labor force as those ages 55 to 59. Or in Vietnam, women living in the poorest household in rural areas of the northern Midlands and mountain region are nearly 8 times as likely as the richest urban women living in the Red River Delta region to dwell in overcrowded households. Next. So there are a lot of systematic constraints that create persistent gaps. For example, of course, the adverse social norms that see women places needs to be at home, rearing children. This creates persistent gap on labor force participation. Discriminatory laws and gaps in legal protection creates persistent gaps on unpaid works and types of paid works. Failure to recognize, reduce, and redistributive unpaid household works and care creates persistent informal work. And also gender pay gaps and gender gaps in access to digital, financial, and property access creates persistent gap in formal enterprise on ownership. Next. So if we try to look in terms of what's behind the gap in the labor market in economic, there are 4 important components: unequal labor participation, gender pay gap, underrepresentativeness in productive sector, and underrepresentativeness of women executive in management position. Next, if we look just on labor participations, labor participation of women in ASEAN countries is 56%, while for men in ASEAN is around 79%. If we look deeper for youth, women aged 15 to 24 who are not in school, not in labor force, not preparing for work, not in training, or what we call idle, is twice the numbers of male in the same age group. This is a big potential that needs to be used when we talk about bonus demography. If we cannot ensure that our young women can actually participate in labor market, it will be difficult to reap the demographic bonus that we keep talking about it. Next. Entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is actually another one that being emphasized. Yes, 60 million of ASEAN women entrepreneurs, but most are not fulfilling their growth potential. For example, in Indonesia, 60% of SMEs are owned by women, but mostly in unproductive sectors without, there are a lot of lack in terms of access to credit, access to digital opportunities, access to market, those are some of like the things that needs to be addressed. So there is a potential on empowering entrepreneurship, but there are also a lot of actions that need to be done to ensure this potential translate into fulfillment. Next. Gender gap is actually not only an issue among ASEAN countries. It's an issue among a lot of countries. Actually, if we compare with other countries, this is from studies by Park in 2021, ASEAN countries is better than some of, like, for example, even better than Korea Republic or Pakistan or overall Asia and the Pacific. Even, for example, Thailand actually have a better paid for women than for men. This is something that probably ambassador from Thailand can tell us more, what works and what doesn't in Thailand. But there are still a lot of homework still that we need to be done to ensure that those women and men with similar work and similar capabilities can earn the same similar kind of payment. Next. The other issues are women are lag behind in preparing for the future of work. We know that there is disruptive technology. The future of work rely a lot on ability and skills and works on some things that growing roles of IT technology, but women are underrepresented in most of those. For example, in data cloud, in big data, in AI, in cloud engineering, in chief commercial officer, only around 25% and below a female representation in those growing roles among ASEAN countries. So there are homework in this part also in terms of like inducing ability for women to participate in these growing roles of the future of works. Next. As we see, women are a minority in tech occupation in ASEAN, and this happens in most of the countries. Female share in computer programming, consultancy, and related activities are quite small compared to the male representativeness. And also in telecommunication, we also see there are also like the share is still below 50% for most of the countries in Asia. Next. So all of this means new actions and recommitment are needed. Next. But achieving women's economic empowerment is not a quick fix. There are a lot of things, both low-hanging fruits, not so low-hanging fruits, that needs to be done. We can learn from each other. For example, on simulating labor force participation through addressing barrier and disincentives to work. For example, expanding access to quality childcare, addressing the disproportional high tax burden for second income earners in households, ensuring gender equality and labor legislation, workforce regulation, and through gender budget mainstreaming. In Indonesia, for example, there is already initiative in ensuring that each activity within the budgets of the government needs to have gender budget statement. Hopefully, it will translate into better improvement in the future. Supporting the growth of women-owned enterprise and female entrepreneurships are another things that needs to be done. Improving labor productivity by strengthening women's linkage with high growth sectors and opportunity, including those that we mentioned earlier, the future of works. Empower women's voice and agency and strengthen leadership, ensuring the quota, the representative of women within parliament is better than what currently we have, for example. Next one. There is also a need to address the digital gender divide. The world is changing. This is a race between technology and skill to ensure that women will not lag behind, will not left behind. There is a need to especially make reference to this digital gender divide. I understand each of the 10 countries have their own agenda and also regulations and a plan to address this, but without a reference to digital gender divide, it will be difficult for us to make sure that we can achieve the target within the time that we would like to have it. The other things, of course, business sector has an important role to play, promote equal participation of women in this digital economy, ensuring, for example, access to ensuring that better ability for women to have a better role. There is no glass ceiling, for example, within the business sectors to ensure like more representativeness in leaderships, in managerial positions. Focus on basic digital access is also important, but there is also more important to ensure that advanced types of access on STEM skills, jobs, and careers. And data is also, of course, very important because we only get what we expect if we can inspect. Then the lack of gender disaggregated data on the participation of women in the digital economy across ASEAN is very important. And encouraging public and private sector collaboration among ASEAN countries, as we see, there are a lot of room that we can learn from each other, from Laos, from Vietnam, from Thailand, from everywhere, from Singapore, from Malaysia. With learning from each other, we can actually help each other to achieve the target sooner than this 136 years that WEF said that ASEAN countries will only be able to address the gender gap. Next. Of course, it means that policy should not be static. Context changes rapidly in short period of time. Understanding what works and what doesn't, understanding the constraint in each country. The policies shouldn't be one size fits all, but there's always lessons to be learned. Continue to develop ways of producing evidence what works and what doesn't, looking at the positive deviance within the countries, among the countries, so that we can recover stronger and recover better from the pandemic, including in terms of addressing the gender gap. Thank you. That's like a 15 minutes brief. Of course, there are a lot of things that I believe the ambassadors from ASEAN countries can tell more about the lessons learned from each countries and the commitment and also actions oriented that we can do to address these issues. Thank you, Sandrina.
Thank you so much. Amazing presentation, Mrs. Vivian Latas. And now, participants, our second presentation for today will be delivered by Mrs. Sita Aripurnami. Previously, in 2018, Mrs. Sita Aripurnami was the head of delegation of W20 Indonesia. Currently, she is the executive director of the Women Research Institute and advisory board of W20 Indonesia 2022. Mrs. Sita Aripurnami, same as before, the time allocated for your session is 15 minutes. So, Ibu Sita, kami persilakan.
Thank you, Sandrina. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, and nice meeting you all. Good afternoon from Jakarta. Your Excellency, Madam Lena Mariana Mukti, Your Excellency, Asian Ambassadors, former Minister of Women's Empowerment and Child Protection, Ibu Linda Agung Gumelar, and also Bapak Indra Gunawan, Deputy Minister of Women's Empowerment and Child Protection. It is a real pleasure to be here with all of you, and I would like also to not to say the same thing with Mbak Vivi, so I will skip some of the slide to shorten the presentation. But before I begin, I actually like to share with you that the context of my talk is about the role of the international diplomacy. And my talk will be divided into several parts. The first is about facts and data, condition of women or gender situation based on the World Economic Forum, which I will skip a lot since Vivi already mentioned about that. And secondly, about the W20 priority issues. And the third part is the alignment of W20, G20, and Asian countries. And the fourth is the key recommendation, and the fifth is the conclusion. Next, please, the slide. Yeah. So the international diplomacy. Actually, there are many international diplomacy vehicles that can be a means to strengthen women's situation and condition globally. But here I will talk mainly on the relation with G20, W20 as one of the engagement groups, and also Asian. Since next year, Indonesia will become the chair of Asian. And there are two important institutions in relation with Asian. It's the Asian Women Entrepreneurship Network and Asian Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children. And I would like also to ask all of us to pay attention on facts and data produced by international organizations, McKinsey, that already being mentioned by Mbak Vivi, Deloitte, OECD, and many UN's publication forums like ILO, UN Women, UNFPA, etc., SDGs, and also World Economic Forum. Also, beside that, we also have to pay attention on the facts and data produced by the National Bureau in every countries, the Asian countries, as well as independent local institution or organization. So the role of international diplomacy is actually very much based on the data and the facts, figures. And this is, as we mentioned, is one of the challenge of the Asian countries on the data and figure. But also what we can use is the data produced by the international organization publication. Next, please. I'm using more on the data from the Global Gender Gap Index from the World Economic Forum. And this is the 2021 report. So there are 4 indicators as the index framework that they see. First is the economic participation and opportunity. Second is the political empowerment. Third is the health and survival. And fourth is the educational attainment. Next, please. Here, I try to make summarize on the ranking of the gender gap ranking of the Asian countries. This is based on the 2021 publication of World Economic Forum. And as we can see, it is interesting because before that, the 2020 report, which quoted by His Excellency Ambassador of Thailand, it shows that the rank of Thailand in 2020 is 75 and in 2021 is 79. So perhaps this is also influenced by the situation of the pandemic of COVID, but this is also when we see this facts and figure, we can become aware and trying to see what it should be done in order to make the improvement. Next, please. Okay, can we just go through directly to slide number 9? Now, next, please, to slide number 9. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. No, back again. Number 9. This okay. Back. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, yes. Okay. So this is about the W20, which I extracted from the speech made by Professor Caitlin Byrne. She's one of the head of delegation. She's from Australia. What is interesting is that in 2014, that was 8 years ago, the G20 summit that time explicitly acknowledged the need for the gender-inclusive economic growth. The acknowledgement reflected years of tireless civil society advocacy, as we know. More importantly, it prompted a shared and enduring commitment to lift women's participation in the workforce 25% by 2025. So this is a target that being set by the G20 summit. And then starting in 2015, G20 formed W20 as one of the engagement group. And this laid the foundation for the establishment of the W20 as an official G20 engagement group, with advancing the economic empowerment of women during the Turkey G20 presidency in 2015. Next, please. This year, Indonesia hosting the G20 that offers transformative potential for advancing issues of gender equality and women's economic empowerment on the global stage. Gender equality and women's empowerment have been prominent themes of Indonesia G20 platform since the nation took on the presidency in December 2021. And opening the first G20 Sherpa meeting in December 2021, Indonesia Foreign Minister Ibu Retno Marsudi called of all G20 officials to produce concrete solutions for the benefit of all parties, both East, West, and North, South. And this is also being reiterated again in the kickoff of W20. Next, please. This initiative signaled the recognition of women as critical economic actors in economic governance and not as unrealized economic assets. Traditionally, women are excluded from economic decision-making and reflected the emergence of feminist perspective within the contemporary structures and processes of global economic governance. It is fitting that this initiative be endorsed to the G20. As an informal and somewhat diverse institution, the G20 breaks from some of the traditional conventions of global economic governance. Next, please. Firstly, by bringing leaders from the global north together with those from the global south, it shifts the agenda and interests at play. Secondly, integrating other multilateral institutions like the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, the International Labour Organization, and United Nations into its agenda will offer potential for coherence in long-term policy making. Finally, by involving non-official publics from across business, labor unions, and civil society, will involve ordinary people in the development of global economic policy, thus underscoring its wider ambition to ensure the benefit of globalization shared by people in all corners of the globe. Next, please. So, this is my suggestion as an alignment of the international diplomacy forces, G20, W20, and Asian countries. So globally, women's economic positioning has not only stalled, but it's moving forward. The World Economic Forum report suggests that gender parity is about around more than 100 years away if we still the way we work like now. Women continue to be excluded from access to land and ownership, legal identity, paid work, bank accounts, capital, smartphones, and education. There is still some way to go to ensure that systemic issues related to gender inequality, discrimination, and violence are addressed. The effect is to demonstrate that women's contribution is valued and not merely from the perspective of unrealized economic assets. Next, please. Moreover, women and girls continue to be the subject of exploitation, harassment, and violence at home and in the workplace. Just looking at the latest data from the Gender Inequality Index, it is telling that only 5 of the G20 member states actually rate in the top 20 when it comes to equal delivery on human development equality measures. Yet, based on the report on 2021, there is none among the Asian country members that is in the top ranks, meaning the Big 10, to close the gap. Next, please. So now, as I mentioned before, the Asian has 2 important institutions. First is the Asian Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children that show considerable efforts among others is the Regional Plan of Action on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and through the development of the Regional Plan of Action for Protection of Children from all forms of online exploitation and abuse. And secondly, this commission also acknowledged the indispensable roles of women and children in responding to and building back better from the pandemic. At this point, the Asian Commission may link with G20 engagement group, i.e. the W20, to work hand in hand, especially since the theme of G20 Indonesia is recover stronger, recover together, and emphasized by W20, recover equally. Next, please. Female voices are SB20, one of the G20 engagement group on business, documented conspicuous by their absence, which is, there's almost, it's difficult to find the voice of female in the business sector, even though there are many. This developed a sufficiently coherent narrative to secure wider public buy-in for its inclusive economic governance agenda. This issue remains somewhat on the margins of relevance. This reflects that G20 is still not strong enough to delivering the step change for women that they have promised. And I believe if we work hand in hand, G20, W20, and Asian countries, we may amplify it stronger. The second institution of Asian is the Asian Women's Entrepreneurs Network, or AWEN. It is a regional network of National Women Entrepreneurs Association or organization, enterprises, and or other economic entities owned or managed by women in all economic sectors in the Asian region. So AWEN's mission is to improve the capacity of Asian women entrepreneurs and boost Asian women's entrepreneurs development and network through the network activities. So by connecting engagement groups in G20, i.e. W20 and B20 with AWEN, may become forces to strengthen the work of realizing the economic inclusion of women. Next, please. The key recommendation. This is the fourth part, almost there. The Global Gender Gap Report may become one of the tools to encourage public-private dialogues and cross-country comparison to guide stakeholders of Asian countries in closing gender gaps. By providing a continuous assessment of the drivers of gender disparities, the report supports the case for closing gender gaps and to encourage further research on policies and practices that are effective at promoting change. Next, please. The W20 should advocate for a global strategy for gender equality and one that brings each G20 institution and engagement group in line to combat gender inequality and underrepresentation. Moreover, such a strategy should capture, communicate, and realize a coherent vision for women's equality and empowerment across the globe. At this point, Asian community in Kuwait, Asian as countries also, may involve and join the force to advocate for a global strategy for gender equality. Next, please. There is real potential to build strategic partnership with other countries non-G20 members, such as Asian countries members, global and regional multilateral organizations, university, private sectors contributors that support more coherent evidence-based outcomes and enable the sharing of good practice. This potential partnership are important to hold leaders to account, since in its inception that W20 has demonstrated an ability to raise awareness of the significance of women's economic empowerment. Yet each year we wonder how to make the case to leaders and whether and how they respond to the issues raised. For too many leaders, G20 Sherpas and ministers, gender equality and women's economic empowerment remains a secondary issues. Next, please. So this is the conclusion. To build a better world from women's perspective. In my opinion, it's time to hold them to account, not just for the commitments they make, but for their compliance in taking those commitments forward. And this can be supported by the Asian community, countries, community in Kuwait, and also Asian countries, as well as other countries globally. It is clear that Taking women's economic empowerment forward is a whole of society responsibility. It demands the attention, resources, and investment from across public, private, and civil society, and require us not to work locally, regionally, and globally to advance our aims. Yet, as global economies continue to manage and respond to the ongoing and deep impacts of COVID-19, there has never been a more compelling moment for us to deliver on this mission. Indonesia W20 has given us the call to action to recover together equally. Indeed, we will all be far stronger in the short and longer terms if we can. Or otherwise, we will achieve our dream of better world in 135.6 years from now. As the final word, Asia may become one of the forces to strengthen the position of women economically, socially, and politically, and achieve justice throughout Asia. We can recover together, stronger and equally. Thank you for listening to me. Back again, over to you, Sandrina. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Ibu Sita Aripurnami. That was very informative and beneficial. Thank you to our amazing speakers. Now, we were supposed to end this forum at 3 p.m. Jakarta time, West Indonesia time. But I have just been informed that we will extend the duration of this forum for another 30 minutes. So we have now a small portion of time before we conclude this gathering. Would like to give the opportunity to a few participants to put forward their questions. The questions can be put forward in Bahasa Indonesia. Jadi bisa mengajukan pertanyaan dalam Bahasa Indonesia. Please raise your hand, and then we will pick the participant who will be given the chance to question. Or you could also write down your question in the chat column. So far, we only have comments in the chat forum. Perhaps somebody from the organizing committee.
Nurlia Nurdin. Host Mbak Sandrina, Profesor yes. Nurlia Nurdin. Profesor Nurlia Nurdin sepertinya sudah resen ya.
Oke, saya belum lihat di sini. Kami persilakan Profesor Nurlia Nurdin. If you have a question to put forward, silakan. Yeah.
Baik, ini jadi double nih. Thank you very much. This really enlightening, and I've been following this Ibu Lena, our ambassadors in Kuwait. I have a question along with actually endorsement for this, since this is already begun. First, how is other countries beside Indonesia? Currently, Indonesia come up with some news that the apparatus, the police officers, they are the persons who actually not happily to support the women in terms of violations. For example, some news already raised of Indonesia. And that's the question will be also in other countries. How are the apparatus support this, the woman equality before laws? And the other side also a supported collaboration between Asian countries. There should be endorsement that to enforce women gender equality, it should be start the way of local government or government employee, whoever they are in the civil servants or in the police officer. They should be the first authority or the first person who actually should support this woman equality. So when they do against the law, practicing against the law, sorry to say, like raping women, that's really a big issue and should be a lot more punishment for them. So what will be other countries to perceive this? In other ways, we support women equality, but other practicing still, we have women underrepresented in law enforcement. And it will be really happy with Ibu ambassadors, Ibu Lena, our respectful ambassador, to begin this collaboration. Let's start this woman empowerment by having all the apparatus to support this. When they're against the law, they should be got penalty a lot more than other peoples. I think that's my question, including a suggestion. Thank you, Ibu Sandrina.
Thank you, Professor. Who would like to comment first? Maybe Your Excellency, Ambassador Lena, or Mrs. Fifi Alatas, or
maybe we put all the question and response
together first.
Together. Yes, all together. Yes.
I think then we will go to the next question. Please raise your hands.
Di chat room, Mbak Sandrina.
Di chat room, yeah. I don't know why I don't see anybody raising their hands. Is there? Are there any other questions?
From Dr. Susilawati.
Maybe she'd like to.
Maybe she'd like to.
Just directly put forward her question. Yes,
Dr. Susilawati.
We have from KPPI, Dr. Susilawati wrote us a short question, but we would prefer for you to put forward your question directly to the forum. Persilakan, Dr. Susilawati. Apakah Dr. Susilawati masih bersama kita?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I think to be more effective and see the strong role of women in building the ASEAN community, it is better to create a new symbol that still adopt the existing ASEAN symbol to include a small flower as a symbol of woman. It will be very interesting to make the role of ASEAN woman more visible and more exciting. What do you think? Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Oh, here, somebody raised their hands. Where is it? Let us see who raised their hands. Lucia H. Sihombing. Silakan.
I will talk in English. Thank you, everyone. I'm Lucia. I'm a humanitarian worker based in Bali. Thank you for this great event on women. We should have more forum like this. But I would like to bring us to highlight the term of no one left behind, since the women and girls in Myanmar since last year suffering due to coup by the military. There are many women die, shooting, jailed, abused during the last 1 year after the coup. Business cannot work properly in Myanmar and women losing jobs due to pandemic and coup. I really expect that through this forum, we could raise our voice as ASEAN women to the ASEAN leaders on behalf of Myanmar women and children, that women and girls can get guarantee of equal life with other country in ASEAN, that they deserve democracy and freedom within Myanmar. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'd gather 5 first. So one more. I saw another one earlier.
Mbak Sandrina, we already take the note of the question and respond in the chat room. So you can go ahead by delivering this response and question to other speakers or other excellencies, ambassadors.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we have already 4 questions put forwarded directly to our speakers. And I would like to give the first opportunity to Ibu Fifi Alatas to comment, and then to Ibu Sita.
Thank you, Sandrina. From the question of Professor Nurliah Nurdin, I will try to answer, but I think some of the His Highness ambassadors here can tell more about like what works in their particular countries in improving, ensuring that apparatus and police officers are also in line with the goal of like addressing gender issues and gender parity. But overall, the lessons is actually you got what you expect if you provide carrot and sticks in the right way. In some cases, for example, performance-based budgeting, it reminds me of like I just recently, I was reviewing the lessons from China, how China addressed poverty and already able to make the extreme poverty becoming zero. There is a book by Yun Ang, professors, I think, in Cornell, if I'm not mistaken, which is showing that the performance-based budgeting, including having, it's almost like a corporate structure where each apparatus has some kind of a scorecard, and the scorecard linked to the object or the indicators that we would like to do. This is probably one way to ensure that there is an in-line between what they did with what we want to do, ensuring that it is actually taking into account when they like within their promotions and also allocations of budget. Performance-based budgeting by ensuring data actually included when we, for example, in Indonesia, DAU and DAK, the allocations for the local government should actually include performance in improving gender. It means that data needs to be more disaggregated at the local level. It means that we need to ensure that there is a clear coordination and clear direction, that this is an important indicators and important agenda. Budget mainstreaming is another way. This is something that Indonesia has started with ensuring every activity should have gender budget statement. Of course, Her Excellency Lena and others within the audience can talk more to what extent this regulation translate into the right implementations. I think the other his ambassadors from Thailand or from Vietnam, from Laos may have like some important stories to tell in terms of like sharing what works and what doesn't in their countries, in ensuring such alignment between apparatus and police officers with the gender goals.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Fifi. Bu Sita mau menambahkan?
Thank you, Mbak Sandrina. So I will give the comments in general. So if we start with what Professor Nurliah put forward, I think what it is important, besides what Vivi said, that we have to be consistent in the implementation of regulation policies. We also have to monitor and evaluate the target that we already put forward. For instance, like the W20, the G20 target on reducing the gap of the labor force participation of women and men labor force participation to 25% in 2025. So in Indonesia, based on the data 2020, the gap is 38%. So that means from 2020, 38%, and to 2025 have to be achieved 25%. We still have to reduce 13%, right? So that is what I meant by besides have to be consistent in implementing the rules and policies, but also what is we going to do in order to achieve the target. And I think with placing the target, we can have tangible indicators in order to get the achievement of the gender parity in Indonesia or in Asian countries. And I think, as Mbak Vivi mentioned, the Excellencies Ambassador here can talk more on the what they have been done. But I think Asian countries has two important institutions that can become part of the efforts in order to strengthen women's position. And that is the Asian Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, where Asian have already made the regional plan of action on the elimination of violence against women. So there also target, that's my illustration on G20. It can be also implemented on how to monitor the plan of action that is developed by Asian in terms of to eliminate the violence against women in Asian countries. And also the second institution is the network of the AWEN, yeah. I put my note. So that is on how women business entrepreneurs to collaboratively try to achieve or improve the situation. And I think these two institutions is still now, and the countries take turns to become the chair, and this will be benefit in order to achieve the improvement of women's situation. And I think for the rest, it's more on the call of the Excellencies of Ambassadors that can give more better answer. Thank you. Back to you, Mbak Sanjina.
Ambassadors, Your Excellencies, would you like to comment or give a response in regards to the question put forward by Professor Nulia? With what maybe you could share from the policies in your country, or what is implemented in your country? We still have, I think, with us 2 ambassadors.
Yes. We still have Excellency Sison Sai and
Ambassador of Thailand is still with us.
Dato Ali and Excellency Ruj. How about Excellency Tang? Excellency Zainul Rasid is still here. So could you please share your country's experience on what they respond? Excellency Zainul Rasid, maybe. Excellency Zainul, bisa unmute, or Sison Sai.
Okay, I was wondering myself too, for a topic such as this, and when you take it at an ASEAN level, certainly it's a very huge agenda. And coming from Singapore particularly, I think you will recognize that, in fact, it will be fair for me to say that there's no one size fits all. Singapore is a small city-state very urbanized, very maybe in some areas a lot more advanced in terms of the industrial development. But having said that, I think there are still areas. I think the general point I'd like to make is that I think each country will have to do their own programs which suit their needs. And this is where, in fact, I think by the exchange of information. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Yes,
I
sir.
think by this exchange of information, then we can see what fits our individual needs. For example, I mentioned early on in the opening remarks just now, we had recently 2 seminars, one organized by the Media Corp as part of their leadership summit, annual leadership summit. And there were a lot of discussion about the level of success or lack of success. Although Singapore is one of the more advanced, but still we are lagging behind in terms of parity, in terms of gender equality. So we still need, there's more to be done. So I think what we can do is actually, for example, another example I mentioned that Singapore government is coming out with a white paper to be tabled in Parliament where they will discuss about the issue, the challenges, and the actions to be taken to overcome some of these issues and challenges. So this is where we can compare notes and we try to learn from each other. Although, as I mentioned earlier, there's no one size fits all, but let's try and see where is relevant. We can pick and choose what is relevant for our own needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Rashid. Ambassador
Zainul.
Oh, sorry, Ambassador Zainul Rashid. Yeah. Would Ambassador Sisongsai Ngaufongsi would like to comment? You are still muted, Your Excellency. Perhaps maybe we still have the Ambassador of Thailand with us? If not, maybe Your Excellency, Ambassador Lena Mariana Mukti.
Yes, Excellency Sisongsai, would you like to respond? Could you please unmute? Unmute, please. Unmute. We already asked you to unmute. Can you do that, Excellency Sisongsai? Okay. You have to unmute first. Excellency Sisongsai, you have to unmute first. Can you do that now? Okay, so maybe there is a technical problem. Okay, so thank you for the response and especially the views shared by our ACK's ambassadors, fellow ambassadors. I would like to respond some of the question. Actually, I'm not the speaker, but since there is a question about women in Kuwait, so I have already prepared this that Kuwait women here have long recognized as pioneers with a voice in social, political, intellectual, and cultural fields throughout the country's history. And Kuwait is a quite small country compared to other ASEAN countries. The population only 1 million, but the women is very active here, including in sport, because on the International Women's Day commemoration in Kuwait, I attended the sport venue held by the Kuwait Olympic Committee. That's they involved in the many sports. Women is very active here, even though the current member of parliament, no single women in the parliament except the ex officio of the minister. Here, if I'm not mistaken, is a minister for communication, right? Communication and information is a female minister. will cooperate with them and work together with the Kuwait women especially in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals number 5. And that's the short answer for Gadiranti, my best friend from Indonesia. And she's a very successful businesswoman, and looking forward for her to come to Kuwait to exhibit her works. And I would like also to respond about the Myanmar situation that we, of course, that we hear the SICA's ambassador, we gather often and discuss about the situation in respective countries. And of course, that the statute of the ASEAN Charter that non-interference with the internal situation of respective countries, but of course that we talk together. And I myself, one of the fact-finding missions member in 2000, if I'm not mistaken, is in 2017 when the Myanmar case erupted in the Bangladesh border. I went there as a part of ASEAN Parliamentarian for Human Rights fact-finding. We went to Kutub Palong in Cox's Bazar province in Bangladesh, and we talked to them. And we tried, as a member of parliament, as in the government side, to settle the case or the unrest in Myanmar. But we talked to our colleague here in Kuwait, and if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Susulawati suggested us to put the symbol of women in ASEAN symbol. I think all ambassadors can put this into note and deliver this suggestion to our respective government. And also the question about the tips are on how to empower our young girls and youth to move in progress toward better world for women. I think, for the young generation nowadays in ASEAN countries, they enjoy the rights more freely than what we enjoy last for example, in 1970s, as mentioned by Excellency Ambassador Zainul Rashid. I think that compared to what is happening in old time and current time, that you can see, for example, in Indonesian case, in the parliament, now about 30% of young generation, boys and girls, they now become the member of parliament. Also in Thailand, I have a very close friend, Rachada, her name, is very active, and she's very young. And also in the Philippines, in Laos, in Cambodia, and also in other ASEAN countries, we meet each other quite often. And I would like to relate to the question from Titi Anggraini, our democracy ambassador. So, Excellencies Ambassador, I would like to introduce you, Titi Anggraini. She's the young, prominent expert in election, not only for Indonesian case, but Indonesian election, but for all for the global democracy. And she's one of the ambassador for democracy. And she raised the result of the current presidential election in South Korea. And the candidate who won this election during the campaign, he promised to abolish the Women and Gender Ministry of Gender equality, but we have a very long relation, and I think it started by Mbak Sita Aripurnami and Kak Nana Adriana Nurdin here. Both of them are founder of Women Research Institute, and they have a very close relation with the Korean Women Development Institute. This is a very amazing institute, amazing agency, amazing institution. And I think this is only one in the world that the agency, the institute is under presidential directly. So the government provide the budget, the gender budget, quite big amount of budget for this Korean Women Development Institute, and every year they train us not only for the Korean women but also for the ASEAN countries. What they call is Southeast Asian Gender Assembly. They call it, and it's every year. So I will talk to them, to the KWDI dignitaries or a president, and to find out what is happening with this Korean Women Development Institute. Even though the ministry abolished, but I believe that the KWDI in South Korea still will be existing because they got a very huge budget from the government. I think we already respond to all of questions, and also for the last but not least for Professor Nurlia Nurdin. She's a young professor from the Lembaga Administrasi Negara State Administration Institution, very prominent institution in Indonesia. And what she raised that for my fellow ambassadors, Excellencies Zainul Rasid, Sisonsai, and Ambassador Tangs, also Rouge, that we are now still debating what we call it the bill of abolishment of sexual criminal or sexual abuse in our country, and the debate of this is very harsh, but hopefully then in the near future that we will see the bill become enacted as a law in Indonesia. I think that's what would like to respond to all the question and the response. But Sandrina, back to you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Perfect timing. We're about to approach 3:30 Jakarta time or West Indonesia time. So I think if everybody agrees, then we could just conclude today's forum. Excellencies, participants, we have reached the very end of this webinar. So many important facts, data, valuable information, great initiatives, promising plans, high hopes that have been shared by not only our amazing speakers, but also by all 6 ambassadors who have been present.
But excuse me, but Sandrina, here we see the Philippine embassy. So Miss Francis Jemisola, right? So actually, we are expecting Ambassador, oh my God, Nurdin, Excellency Ambassador Nurdin from the Philippines. Maybe you'd like to deliver a short message from the ambassador, or what, Miss Francis Jamisola? No? Nggak unmute ya? No? Okay, itu tadi. Unmute? No? Sudah semua? Okay. Okay. Here, all ambassadors here are here. My fellow SEK's ambassadors, Excellency Sisonsai, Excellency Jainul Rashid, Excellency Ambassador Tang, and Excellency Ambassador Ruj. So before Mrs. Sandrina close this webinar, thank you. We would like to extend our gratitude to all excellencies and madam, spouse of ambassadors, the participants, and I believe that we can work together, and we'll see you on the tomorrow event on the SEK launch commemorating the International Women's Day. So thank you so much, and especially for the host, Mbak Sandrina Malakiano. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Lena Mariana Mukti. So this definitely has been a very rich webinar, and we truly hope that what we have discussed about all the issues throughout this forum, that what we are all striving for in terms of women's role, women's participation, women empowerment, gender equality, all this will be achievable in the near future. I would like to extend our highest appreciation to everyone involved in this webinar. All ambassadors, thank you so much. Terima kasih banyak. All speakers, the Indonesian Embassy in Kuwait, together with Dharma Wanita Persatuan of the Indonesian Embassy in Kuwait, as well as MPI or Maju Perempuan Indonesia. All participants joining this forum via Zoom and the YouTube channel of Rumah Pemilu ORG. And I would like to close today's virtual gathering with these sentences posted as headline on the International Women's Day website. Imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, a world that's free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where differences are valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can all break the bias. So everyone, let's celebrate women's achievement, raise awareness against the bias, take action for equality. I'm Sandrina Malakiano. Thank you for your contribution, support, and kind attention. Please stay healthy. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om. Salam sehat untuk semua. Have a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you.